Pride, what a pleasure to have you in the room talking to us in your capacity as a friend of the Branson Center, somebody who's purpose-led, somebody who enables others. I think your purpose was to illuminate and clarify the purpose in others.
Yes.
And of course, in terms of today's conversation, you're somebody who loves, who understands, who lives, breathes, creates, curates brands. So welcome to this conversation and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nobisa. What an amazing intro.
Maybe I'm setting up the brand for you, but before I overuse this name or this word, and you probably want to hit me over the head, let's go straight into it. What is brand and what is its importance in our businesses?
I love that we're still talking about this. For many years, this question about what is brand comes up and it evolves over time. We learn more and more about brands, as we go as brand strategists, as brand custodians. But what a brand is intention that organizations or anyone who puts anything together puts out there. It's an intention that almost takes into account different things. It takes into account what do you want to solve in the world? It takes into account what product you want to design. It takes into account the service. Not only that, it takes into account who you hire, what culture of the organization that you're going to have. It takes into account the values you want to embed in your organization and really what you want to do for the audience that you're creating all of this for. So it's all encompassing and it's almost guided in some way by a north of sorts. And, we're discovering now that part of that north is what you spoke about earlier about purpose. And purpose keeps coming up now as this addition to what brand is. And it's always been there, but now it's getting more illuminated. It's becoming part of how we think of brand, and it's an important part of that. So why brand is important to any organization is that when people meet you, your organization, what you're creating, what you're building, what you're designing, they meet the brand first. They interact with that first. And then they start to design their, thoughts around what is it that you're trying to do in the world. When people meet you, your product, your service, your staff, your employees, all your leadership, they meet a brand. So brand is the way to create an identifier for them to connect with so that they can say, wait, that thing, that connection we made, that's the brand.
That's the brand. That feels like the one lecture that, not even lecture, that's the wrong word, but it feels like that's the masterclass that a lot of us needed in our businesses, because when a lot of us come across this idea of brand, it's so easy for it to fall into this idea of its look and feel, its design. I'm not creative. I don't know how colors work. Therefore, I'm not somebody who understands brand. And yet you've just explained it so beautifully around this idea of intention and, of course, then how that intention is informed by purpose. And so I'm curious to find out what your feeling is and what your understanding is when we talk about brand meeting purpose and how purpose can be embedded in brand.
One of the things I wanted to mention earlier is how brand is an emotive environment. It's actually about emotion. It's about connection. So, we always joke and say when you're meeting someone for the first time and you're like, oh, that person is interesting. There's an emotion there, and part of knowing that brand is emotive means that everyone can be creative around brand, because if you can build that connection and emotion, then you're definitely on the right track. Where purpose comes in is the intention to actually solve something in the world. Purpose is what's going to take your brand from being just a beautiful masterpiece. That's probably a connection that you've made with consumers to a beautiful masterpiece that actually connects you to consumers in the long term, because you have something that you both believe in. I love what Simon Sinek said. The intention is to do business with people who believe in what you believe in, not necessarily to do business with people who just want what you have. If you do business with just people who want what you have, it's very short-lived. Once they have it, they walk away. When you do business with people who believe in what you believe in, you have a long connection and you're solving something in the world. So where I bring in purpose is, does it actually leave the world in a better place than it was? Have you solved your audience's real challenges that they deal with daily? Have you connected at an action level with them? And that's what purpose starts to do for brands. Where it becomes easier then to sort of embed it and look at where can we put it, in the organization. So there's not just a statement. I've heard some beautiful, beautiful purpose statements from companies. Some say, we challenge the status quo. Some say we want to leave people with more more knowledgeable than we found them. Amazing statements, right? What do you do with that in your product, in the service you offer? What do you do with it in your HR department? What do you do with it in your finance department? It means that you actually start to look at your business in a very clear way that says, have we designed our financial model to leave people more knowledgeable? Have we designed our marketing messages in a way that leaves people more knowledgeable? Does our product deliver to make sure that people have more knowledge and insight in their world? Have we co-created a way that all our employees feel more empowered and knowledgeable when they leave? You can suddenly actually create a real way of measuring it step by step through your entire ecosystem of your organization and outside of your organization with your consumers, with your suppliers, with your investors, your entire ecosystem. It becomes the glue that pulls it all together. I want to mention as well, it's got perks. Real perks.
We love
purpose.
Purpose
Has perks. Okay.
That feels like in itself some sort of brand statement that we need to be making.
That's it. If we just go to every brand and say, listen, your brand is amazing, but if you embed purpose in your brand, it's got amazing perks. One, there's rough times that you will go through as a brand where maybe your product is no longer relevant or people are disconnecting to your product in some way and you need to innovate. Purpose can help you innovate. It can help you show you what's the next version of what your audience is concerned with, because just the pulse of your audience will tell you what they're thinking about next. If they're seeking more knowledge, they'll tell you where they're seeking it and how they're seeking it. So purpose actually helps you with that. Another one that I really love, people like to separate purpose from profit and say, oh no, purpose is for the soft stuff, maybe CSI, and then profit is when we're talking money.
Yeah, or purpose is what we do after we've done the things. It's the thing we'll get to eventually. Let's first, get our business model solid.
Exactly. In that scenario, the perk there is that no, actually, purpose literally drives profit. When people believe in what you believe in, even the ones who can't use your product come through for you. I have so many brands that I just love what they stand for. I love their purpose. I can't use the brand. Perhaps it's for a child, I don't have a child, or perhaps it's for a service that I can't use. But you know what I do? The first person I meet who needs that service, I tell them about it. You
advocate for it, yes.
I advocate for it. When I see them doing things that are, that need a contribution or a donation towards something, I contribute. There's one that I'm working with now where they need mentors. I don't know anything about I can't use their service, but guess what? I sign up as a mentor, sign other people up. So the advocates come out as well. So in that way, your groundswell, through word of mouth becomes completely at another level. Absolutely. So yes, it drives purpose directly because your advocates and your supporters multiply and tell others. And before you know it, you have that movement.
And I feel like it then perhaps, or maybe what I'm hearing is that in that, once people understand your purpose and then how that shows up in your brand, that then becomes this amazing sort of virtuous cycle that one feeds the other and one supports the other. And therefore that becomes a resilient business model.
That's it. It completely surpasses those challenging times where you need to evolve or even shows you a new path. Part of what I like to talk to brands about, especially when it comes to viewing an ecosystem in a way and saying, are these people, how did they arrive here? Is it through purpose? Purpose is literally the law of attraction. If you're sitting there and your purpose is clear, you've articulated it, you continue to talk about it, you continue to embed on it, you continue to actually drive towards it, and you're seeing change. People come to you and say, we want to contribute. People, they volunteer their time for that. So it literally is the law of attraction in action. It attracts you to the right investors, attracts you to the right brand advocates, attracts you to the right audience, your consumer base. It can also give you a lifetime consumer. So someone who starts with you when they're in high school already, grows with you into their early years working, then become, real advocates as they have more people who follow them. So this lifetime consumer measurement that is very important in branding actually can grow.
Sure. I'm going to jump back to something that when we were first sort of introducing the notion of brand, that, piqued my interest because I suspect it's something that might be interesting to a lot of other entrepreneurs, which is this idea of we all have a sense of when we talk brand, so much of our actions and our decisions around building our brands for our businesses are oriented towards the external actions of our business. And then you mentioned something about culture, around people. I'm curious to find out, what can we do as business owners, as entrepreneurs, to make sure that our brand for the business, our purpose-led business, remains strong within the business?
That is such a good place to start with culture. I'm actually right now coaching an entrepreneur who just realized that the people who've started in his organization in the last 2 years don't know the purpose. And that's what's causing so much frustration. Whereas 5 years ago, when they launched, the purpose was so clear. It was what they were telling everybody. And so people who started 5 years ago, their version of the culture is great. And so almost feels now like, I just realized that the purpose hasn't been embedded over the last couple of years. And the reason for that is because day to day is happening. There's so much complexity in any business. So as an entrepreneur, you will lose traction with what's happening, and you need to actually come back and reinforce the purpose. So I want to tell this little story so you can understand why it's important to continuously talk about purpose. So in spaces, especially in entrepreneurial spaces, you've got the luxury of talking about your business all the time,
Yes.
because people are constantly asking you what you're doing, why you're doing it, and you're always wanting to grow. I think having the purpose conversation every single time you have an opportunity with your people helps with making sure that you get like movement. Whenever you're talking innovation, what you're going to launch next, remind everyone what the purpose was, but also allow room for it to become more practical and to actually evolve. Purpose doesn't have to be like this stance that you take and never move and evolve on.
It's not a religion.
It's not a religion. It's actually a movement. If you're solving, for example, food waste as an example, and the category for food waste is growing, that means there'll be new technology. Adopting that new technology means that you've got more information, so you know what to do. Purpose is exactly the same. So over the years, try and actually bring it up. Ask your people what their opinion is. Ask them what they're seeing that's different. Remember, people came to work for you because of purpose. They came to work in your organization because they saw something they identify with. So ask them what they identified with, how they interpret it, ask their intersection of it. I love women-led organizations that actually stand and advocate for women. A lot of them actually, speak to different things: feminism, womanism, economic empowerment. There's different things people stand for, right? In those spaces, women go in there with their own version of feminism, womanism, and all of the others. So the intersectionality of everyone's experience is actually important for you to answer the true question. So to actually answer the true purpose. So bringing purpose into culture gives you the opportunity to interact, insights with the people who actually in the organization. It builds you advocates and ambassadors who go back to their own families and friends and tells them what you guys are doing. But not only that, you are going to birth more people who can go start their own organizations that carry that purpose.
Which then, in almost like in me wrapping it up sort of neat and tidily with a bow, that then is the essence of brand, is because it's this identity that you have in your business that then grows, it multiplies, it evolves, and yet it's inclusive. It's all encompassing in terms of the people within your business, these new businesses that perhaps have been inspired by your business, have come from your activities, and then of course your product and service. And so that articulation when it comes through into brand, I'm finding it so interesting that there's almost now a very sticky place between brand and purpose, where I'm almost feeling like that even in our conversation, there is an interchangeability in terms of the word brand, the word purpose suddenly, and that those two things now sitting really closely together. And that's something that's been a very interesting learning for me in this conversation. I do stand to be corrected, of course, but that's what I'm getting from this.
Think of brand as the identifier, and then think of purpose as the intention. So yes, they sit and work closely together. But what happens is when you add purpose to brand, the intention is so much clearer, and you're able to move in spaces and ways that you haven't moved before, and you're able to actually create traction on anything that you're doing with any audience. So purpose married to brand is possibly the most powerful formula for your organization or anything that you're building.
I feel almost invincible.
Listen, We were laughing. We were calling people who work in cultures that are brand purpose led are like on stealth mode. They know what they're doing. They move really really fast.
And you feel like it's very difficult to feel like you're doing wrong, because either way you're aligning to your purpose, and how you articulate yourself is neither right nor wrong. It's about it being aligned. And so we're going to go into our sort of quick fire questions in terms of, in Pride's view, brand is
the way people emotionally connect to what you've created.
Brand meeting purpose means
a powerful way of changing the spaces that you want your brand to live, operate, and change and have impact in.
A business whose purpose is not embedded in the brand could
lose their way and lose their audience very quickly.
And so again, maybe if you can remind us, what is Pride's purpose?
I'm loving having to say it over and over, and it is to bring out and illuminate the purpose in others. That's my purpose.
And what's Pride's brand?
My brand is a wise old sage explorer wanting to embed knowledge everywhere.
Pride, it's such a pleasure to have you in the room in conversation with the Branson Center. It has been my pleasure to watch you go through your things as the founder of Archetypal, as the chief consumer officer at LifeCheck, as a director at She Says, which for me speaks so much to who you are as somebody who enables others, somebody who is so aligned to purpose and illuminating the purpose in other people, and at the same time, somebody who is absolutely in love and builds brands, talks about brands, advocates for brands, and also helps us understand a lot more about brand. And so thank you so much for being in this conversation with us.
Thank you. I really love this conversation.
Thank you.